are getting close.
Are you holding my camera properly? Swerve, girl.
Stop, both of you!
Yours will surely come.
Hi, Mom. My parents asked if their grandchildren could visit them for a week.
Here we are. This is where our mom grew up. I've wanted to spend time with you for so long.
Miss you guys!
Mom, we're having a great time.
I have not seen your Nana this happy in years. Bedtime here is 9:30. It's probably best you two shouldn't come out of your room after that. See you in the morning.
9:30?
9:30.
As you probably have guessed, we have seen The Visit, the great return of the great Shyamalan.
Well, return. Like, he didn't stop working. It's the first movie that he made
Since he was ostracized.
Yeah.
We just watched it, obviously completely out of the release. I think before anything we should add, like, what were your expectations? What have you heard? What did you hear before we started watching?
Honestly, I didn't have much interest in The Visit. I honestly like Shyamalan. I think I have more tolerance for him than most people do. I like pretty much every one of his movies up to and including Lady in the Water. Now, Lady in the Water, I would not sit here and say is, like, a good movie. But, like, I can watch it, I can deal with it. There are things in it that I do like. It's not until The Happening when I start getting really irritated with Shyamalan, because he did those 3 movies in a row. The Happening, Last Airbender, and After Earth. I believe that's the order that they were in.
Yes.
And every one of them is not just bad, but shockingly bad.
What? No.
Like, these movies came from the director who gave us The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable. And now...
Signs.
And
People enjoyed too.
And Signs... Well, Signs is good, but when you're talking about, like, Shyamalan's, like, you know, his really good, legitimately good work, like, Signs is... okay. I don't know that it stands with The Sixth Sense. But
I don't think it stands with The Sixth Sense in production or in writing or anything, but it stands there as in it's a movie that got him fairly popular. People like that movie.
Yeah. I would say that Sixth Sense is sort of what kicked him into notoriety and was certainly a very good movie, and it was Signs that cemented him. I would agree with that. But so then you get to that chunk of 3 movies, which are just mind-blowingly bad. Like, even if you hate Lady in the Water, no matter how bad you think that movie is, The Happening is 10 times worse. It's shocking.
The Happening is hilarious.
Yes. So when it came to The Visit, I was like, okay, you know, like, I'm still kind of on Shyamalan's side in a way. Like, when he has a new movie come out, like, I am interested to see what it is. But at the same time, there's nothing in me that wants to rush out and see it.
I pretty much feel the same way. I mean, Shyamalan for me is default. It is ground level. It does. I don't feel like, oh my god, I can't believe another Shyamalan movie's out. Nor do I feel like, oh my god, I can't believe another Shyamalan movie is out. It is absolute baseline for me. I couldn't care less when Shyamalan. I think that's really the worst thing you can say about a director.
Yeah, but see, for me, I do care because I know he can do good things, and I want to see him do those things again. It's, but so far, like, okay, we should also say we also saw Split.
Yes, but we'll start with The Visit for this.
Actually, I want to start with Split. I don't want to, like, get really into it. I just want to mention it because we watched Split before we watched The Visit.
That's true.
And Split is honestly what made me say, like, okay, let's go watch The Visit. Because Split was decent. It wasn't a great movie. It certainly had its flaws, but it was decent. It was entertaining. It was well acted by, I don't remember his name, but the guy with split personality. It was well acted by him. And I had heard that people actually liked The Visit. Like, people were like, you know what? It's pretty decent, actually, is what I had been told.
What I heard was that, well, people weren't exactly raving that Shyamalan had been, returned and it was the best thing ever. I heard that it was an enjoyable movie that had...
The Visit, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That had both elements of horror and comedy.
Comedy?
Yes. Yes, that's what I heard.
I didn't hear that.
Yes, I heard that it had some elements of both. I find it kind of awkward. I couldn't picture it in my head. I couldn't picture Shyamalan writing comedy.
Writing like a horror comedy?
I couldn't picture him writing comedy, period, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which really, I couldn't see it. And I was a little more interested in seeing it because of it. But because, it was still Shyamalan, I still didn't have too much expectations.
Yeah, see, I didn't have any expectations other than I do have a couple of friends who told me that it's actually pretty good, and I had heard from people who went to see it expecting it to be just shit coming out of it, being like, it wasn't that bad.
Well,
so that's what I expected. I expected a movie that wasn't that bad and was kind of okay to sit and watch.
I mean, if you're going to go watch The Visit and expect a second happening, it's not. It's not on that level. It is not the happening.
Yeah.
It is not The Last Airbender. It is not After Earth.
So it doesn't fit into Shyamalan's shit trilogy.
No.
But nor does it fit into his older movies. Like, there was only, I think, one shot in the entire thing that made it feel like Shyamalan to me. And it was when they were looking at the ticket taker on the train. It was kind of like a wide-angle shot, kind of looking up. And that felt very Shyamalan. But the movie being found footage, there's not much room for him to put his visual stamp on it. And likewise, there wasn't much room for
the actors.
Well, there wasn't much room for the actors, but I'm talking about Shyamalan. Like, there wasn't much room for him to put his stamp on the writing or filmmaking. Like so,
the actors didn't feel Shyamalanized.
Yeah, but I don't know that they could have in this movie. Is the thing? It's like the movie doesn't feel like a Shyamalan movie. It doesn't even feel like a movie that he would be interested in making.
That's true. It is an odd thing to come about. I mean, you can see his fingerprints all over, but in general, it isn't a Shyamalan movie per se.
Yeah, like, his fingerprints are definitely on it. But if you had just popped it in and didn't know that Shyamalan had directed it, you would think, like, okay, maybe it was directed by a guy who drew some inspiration from Shyamalan, nothing more.
Or thought, as I did, that Shyamalan had written it and maybe produced it and not directed it.
Yeah, he didn't know that Shyamalan had directed it until I told him after the movie was over. So I guess that should say something.
Yes, it definitely does. Like, if it was, like, shot as a Shyamalan movie and every shot is, like, their faces and... Yeah, it would have totally been my guess. But no, it goes unnoticed for the most part. Not in the writing. The writing is pretty Shyamalan.
Yeah, so, okay, the premise of the movie is a woman who has been estranged from her parents get back into contact with them. I don't remember how exactly.
Online.
Right, but the parents contacted her, though, right? I'm pretty sure the parents contacted her, then she looked them up and told her kids about it. The kids wanted to go, the mother didn't want them to go, which then I questioned why she told them about it in the first place. But yeah, the grandparents wanted to see their grandkids. That was the whole thing. So they wanted the kids to come up and spend a week with them. So the mother, gives in and sends them off while she goes and takes a cruise. And that's pretty much the movie. Like, most of the movie is just them fucking around the house. That's pretty much all there is to it.
Okay, so let's talk about the basic expectations, not from what we had from the movie, but expectations from this premise in general. Like, you have a movie that is clearly supposed to be, regardless of comedy or not, a horror movie. It is supposed to be...
Yeah, okay, can I just say also that you saying that somebody had told you that it was sort of a comedy, I don't see that at all.
No, neither do I.
Like, I don't see how anybody could watch this and be like, it's a comedy.
No, it had comedy elements.
Either way, I don't see it.
Like, I was wondering throughout the movie if some decisions were made to make fun of horror movies, but that's not how they play out.
No, it's like, this could have worked as like almost a spoof kind of a thing.
It could.
And not a spoof in like this scary movie kind of spoof, but just as like a light poking fun at...
Almost like the Scream series?
Yeah, if it could have been the Scream of found footage movies. Like, I could have seen that. Like, that could work, but that's not remotely what this movie is trying to do. It's trying to be a horror and failing miserably.
Yeah, so when we have, like, the expectations of a horror movie like this, and you have these grandparents who clearly are going to be the antagonists, and you have those two kids who are going to be, the victims, the basic expectation is that there has to be tension built up between the grandparents and the kids. And the grandparents start acting weird, and the kids start, retreating or anything.
Yeah.
This is the basic expectation. This is what when you watch the trailer, like, go and expect.
Yes, you expect like that sort of pacing, that build up where it's like first they go there, things are kind of normal, people are happy, but then stuff starts getting weird, the kids start getting nervous, things start progressing and getting weirder and weirder until finally the climax, we find out what's going on and the kids have to deal with it.
None of that.
No, they tried.
The movie.
They tried.
The movie has those beats.
It just
but it
fails.
Like all of them.
Miserably fails. Like, this is the most. Like, this might be the single most boring horror movie ever made. And I like found footage movies. Like, so we like the Blair Witch Project, the first one. Yeah, like the first Blair Witch, the movie that half the population thinks is like a boring nightmare. We like that movie. We enjoy that movie. So for us to say that a found footage movie is boring...
It has nothing to do with the genre.
Yeah. It's just a fucking boring movie that nothing happens in. Like, anything of, like, any, like, where you would start to see, like, tension ratcheting up, where it's, like, at night, the grandmother is doing something weird. Throughout the entire movie, we were saying the same thing. That, like, well, they're old.
Yes.
Like, we were like, okay, the grandmother, like, they both have some medical conditions. The grandmother is, deteriorating in her mental capacities. So it's, like... None of it seemed abnormal. It all fit into, like...
There are certainly weird things, like being naked and scratching at the walls. But that's not...
Yeah, but...
Okay, let's go back a little bit.
Yes, let's sort of rein it in, okay.
The way the movie starts, and the way the 75% of the movie is like, mostly during the day, the grandparents are... mostly fine, and they are actually pretty not appealing. They're welcoming.
They seem
they're
nice.
Welcoming. They're generally nice throughout a lot of the parts of the movie, and you actually grow to like them a lot more. And this is probably one of the worst parts of the movie than the kids. The kids are obnoxious.
Yes, we should like mention this up front, is that the grandparents are far more likable than the kids. The kids are fucking obnoxious little shitheads. Like, everything that they do is the complete opposite of what a normal human being should do. Like, most of the stuff that they do, it would never even pop into somebody, like, even their age, it would never even pop into their heads to do it. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you know, you're living with some old people who you know have mental problems, or medical problems, rather. So when something weird happens that can easily be explained by one of those medical problems, what would a normal person do? Say, oh, it was the medical problems. Not these kids. They start freaking out, saying, there's something weird going on here, even though it was completely explained.
One of the first creepy things that the grandparents do is something that you've probably seen in a trailer if you've seen the trailer. And it is the scene with the grandmother basically under the house chasing the kids while they were like playing hide and seek.
This was the scene in the trailer where they started ratcheting up tension, right?
Yes.
And it's the scene where it's like, okay, you know, you've seen this scene many times, whether it's, you know, in an air duct or whatever, you know, being chased around by the monster, if you will, of the movie. Mm-hmm. And you think that's what that scene is. And then you get into the movie and the kids are playing hide and seek. They each have their own camera and they're, you know, playing hide and seek under the house. And then the grandmother is there and starts, like, chasing them.
Like they were doing to each other.
And they all get out from under the house, right? And the grandmother stands up and it brushes off her knees and is like, you know, well, dinner's ready soon. You know, she was just playing around.
Yeah.
She was happy. But the movie plays it off like
as a scary scene.
Yeah, the movie tries to play it off as a scary scene and the kids are freaking out like, oh my God, she's chasing us. Holy shit. Like,
something that should be added is when I watched the trailer, I assumed that scene would happen much later in the movie.
Much later in the movie when they're being chased. Yeah.
When they're being chased, when tension has already been established. No, this was the first day.
This was the first incident, if you will. And they're already freaking out. Like, this was so abnormal that their grandmother would play with them. Like,
it is really weird.
There is something to be said for, like, they don't know these people, but the movie doesn't play that up either.
It's true.
Right? They get there and they're acting like it's their grandparents. Like, they go there, like, every year for a visit, you know? Like, there's never any sense of, like, you know, we don't know you don't know us, you know, let's get to know each other, or, you know, maybe, like, a little bit of butting heads because they don't really know how to interact with each other at first. Like, there's none of that. They just treat it like, oh, you know, this is a normal visit to grandma's house. But either way, under either context, it doesn't make any sense for them to be freaking out that the grandmother is playing with them.
Oh, and by the way, after this scene, the grandmother goes away and you can see her ass cheek.
Yeah, that was weird.
For
no reason. Like, yeah, she gets up, she brushes her knees off, and then when she turns around, her dress is wedged halfway up her ass and her ass cheeks hanging out. Like,
because Shyamalan finds old women's butt frightening?
Yeah, like,
I couldn't begin to tell.
Like, was that supposed to make the audience uncomfortable? Like,
it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Silly.
It's just silly and weird, where it's like, alright, grandma's losing it a little.
And silly is the key word.
Silly.
Everything that the grandparents do that is supposed to rack up tension, to make it, oh my God, and they're weird and frightening. No, it doesn't. It makes them look silly. It makes them look old. It builds it for both of us. We weren't building tension. We were building empathy for these people.
For the grandparents.
Exactly. That were deteriorating, who were trying to connect with their grandchildren, who like. It does not work. It doesn't work. Like, the movie had no tension.
Like, to give you some sense of how little tension there was, by the first like 45 minutes or so of the movie, I was convinced that the way it was gonna go was it would turn out that there was nothing wrong with the grandparents and that the kids were overreacting and would just destroy their lives. Like, and if Shyamalan had done that as a movie, I would have given all the props in the world to that. That would have been amazing. If it was like this found footage movie where the people making the video were the antagonists, right? And it was all like sort of a stupid misunderstanding because of the characters' lack of empathy or understanding. Like, that would have been really interesting, and I was convinced that
And you would search for his twist.
Yeah, it would have been something as like a Shyamalan twist, and I was convinced that at least something similar to that was going to happen because the way the movie had been building up, there was nothing scary about the grandparents whatsoever. The whole movie was the kids overreacting to simple shit.
I mean, some of the things weren't so simple, and like I already said, like you open the door and your grandmother is naked, scratching at the walls. I mean,
Which seemed very out of place.
It was, but regardless, like the things that the grandparents do don't seem to have any actual basis in real illness.
No.
At
like,
all.
They say, what do they say the illness is?
They only describe the grandmother's illness, and they describe it as sundowning. I'm not sure if it's a real thing.
Yeah,
I doubt it.
We didn't look it up.
But it is some sort of. It's
It's
dementia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you have people in your life with dementia, you know how bad it can be, and you know it comes and goes. But in this, in sundowning in this movie, it is much worse at night, and for some reason causes the grandmother to behave almost like an animal. It makes the grandmother behave like the scary monster in a scary movie because that's what the movie needed, basically.
Yeah. And it came off as just silly.
Because you have a monster, you can have a monster do everything, and it looks weird. The grandmother looked like a grandmother. She looked frail. Most of the movie, she looks genuinely sweet. She has a really sweet face, a very sweet smile and eyes. It is really, really hard to try and make this poor woman
seem threatening.
Yeah. She really isn't. And that's really the point. It's like, when you have a scary movie and you have a horror movie, it's important to say what the threat is. Now, even if the grandparents were not as silly as they are, they still wouldn't be threatening because we've never been established with them being violent. They've never been established with them being, psychologically abusive.
Yeah.
We don't have
all we know about them is the mother had some problem with them when she was a kid, right? And when she reached the age of 19, she left, and we don't know what went on between them. But that's all we have. We don't have anything that's they were abusive or they could be dangerous. There's nothing threatening about them. I also want to stop here for a minute and say, if this seems a lot more disjointed than our Wonder Woman or any other vlogs about movies that we do, it's because
nothing happens.
Nothing happens. Normally we would sit here and sort of go through the story and talk about it. There isn't a story to go through and talk about.
No, from the point where the kids get to the house until the end and to the climax, the entire movie is the grandparents are generally nice. They do a few things weird, and the kids blow it way out of proportion.
Yeah.
To the point where you hate the little things. I was generally wanting to smack the kids.
I mean, maybe it's the filmmaker in me, but I hated the fucking girl 50 times more than the boy.
Well, the girl is this pretentious 12-year-old who thinks she's a filmmaker.
The girl is a pretentious little shit. And, everything that she says, I don't know, okay, because no other character is written like this, right? Normally in Shyamalan movies, you have some awkward writing and some awkward dialogue, and people say, weirdly specific things or in a weirdly specific way.
I hear you whispering. Planning on stealing something?
No, ma'am, we're not.
Plan on murdering me in my sleep?
What? No.
The girl in The Visit is the only one written like that. And so it makes her 20 times more obnoxious because, you know, the boy, the brother was holding the camera and slowly like zooming in on her, and instead of saying, "Are you zooming in on me?" she said, "Are you changing the focal length of the lens?" Who says that? Like, Shyamalan is a filmmaker. He should know that nobody has ever said that.
Like, here's the thing. It is believable that that character exists.
Yes, but that doesn't make them a good character for a movie. Like, if you want to say, like, that person exists, fine.
Yes,
I don't want to watch him in a movie because it's fucking obnoxious.
Well, it is, you have to be, you know, if you have these main characters that are supposed to be the victims of a horror movie, probably want to make them likable.
Yeah.
Relatable.
Like, yeah.
No, you want to build the tragedy and the tension in a movie is born from your empathy on your ability to relate to them and ability to put yourself in their place.
Yes, especially if they're kids.
Yeah.
You know, like, kids should have, like, a sympathy card by default. And usually they do. And, you know, it takes, like, a shitty child actor or bad writing to sort of ruin that already built-in sympathy card.
What did you think of the acting? That is a good point.
It's serviceable.
Yeah, I think that if we haven't already, but we usually shit on child actors a lot. This isn't really a case of it. It's not like, oh, that actor. No.
No, they're serviceable. I really think it's a combination of the material and the direction.
Yes.
That just makes them, like, God, like, the writing is so obnoxious with those two. It's just really grating. It's like nails on a chalkboard, like, when you're listening to them talk to each other. Everybody in the movie is fine in terms of acting. It's just that the kids are shockingly unlikable. But the grandparents, their acting is fine too, but more than that, they're, like, extremely likable, where it's like they would just be like the old couple, you know, down the street who the neighborhood kind of keeps an eye on because they're sort of old and frail, and, like, there's sympathy to be had for them, but not for the kids, and it should be the opposite. Like, that's what's so annoying.
I keep wanting to jump to the climax because I'm running out of things to say in general.
Okay, I'm just gonna say this. For the middle of the movie, until the last half hour or less, literally nothing happens. And I'm not using the word literally in, like, slang, like, oh my god, like, literally. No, literally nothing happens. It's like watching somebody's home videos. It's boring as fuck. It's just watching these two kids blow every minor thing completely out of proportion. So by the time you actually get to the twist and to the climax, you know, you're supposed to be like, you know, I knew that there was something going on here. You know, the kids are going to say, see, we told all of you something was going on. But when you actually watch the movie, there was nothing to lead them to that conclusion except the writers wrote it that way.
Yeah.
Like, the writers just expected you to follow along with whatever the kids say, but when in actuality, the kids have no basis for anything that they think is going on.
Yeah.
So, we'll get to the climax. The,
Spoiler alert.
Oh, shut up. If you watch our videos and you complain about spoilers, fuck yourself.
No, I cut that out.
No, I'm not cutting that out. Seriously. Anyway, so the twist of the movie is that it's not actually their grandparents. And
in a completely weird scene, the character...
Well, I was gonna say that in a different movie, this could be really interesting. But to sort of highlight how this movie is so incompetent, the reveal that they're not the grandparents. Why don't you go ahead?
In this movie, the reveal is like. First, we need to establish a couple things that we forgot to establish. When they're going to this house, their mother tells them that their phones won't work, and they also don't have a phone in their house.
Yeah, like,
don't ask questions.
Like the grandparents don't have a phone, and there's no cell service, but they have internet.
They Skype with their mother, who's on a cruise constantly.
Yeah.
So how phones don't work, I don't know.
And like, it's not like they're in a fucking cabin in the middle of the woods.
They're right next to this town.
It's in a neighborhood.
It is, but phones don't work for no reason.
Right, but can we also say that like the fact that they don't have phones in the house and that cell phones don't work never comes into play, and it's completely pointless to mention?
Yeah. Well, it is in the point, like, why don't they call the police when they find out? But...
Right, but it's just really a lazy way to just say, oh, they don't call the police because of this.
All right, fine.
But other than that, like, but even them not calling the police doesn't really come into
I'm gonna get into that. So the kids insist to their mom that some stuff has been going on inside the house because the grandmother especially goes kind of insane during the night.
They've had a couple conversations with her now, and the mother has always just told them like they're old.
Yeah, and as we said, nothing of what has been actually happening is that bad. I mean, there are a few things that are questionable, but in general, there's no reason for these kids to be behaving this way.
Yeah.
Regardless. So they decide, okay, we're going to show them to you. I'm going to show how weird they are. So the little kid grabs the freaking camera, computer, laptop thing, points it through the window at the grandparents who are standing outside talking to a neighbor.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing: is like they weren't talking to a neighbor. They were talking to each other. But
there was a neighbor before that left.
Before, but whatever. The grandparents are standing outside. Out this window. But to give you context, they're not even like level with the window. They're like down, so you're looking at the top of their heads through a dirty window at a bad angle where you can't even see their faces. Now, number one, why the kid decided to show the mother the two just standing outside.
See how weird
know.
They are? They're standing there. Like it made no sense.
Why the kid decided to show that, I don't know. It's fucking stupid. But beyond that, the mother wouldn't even be able to fucking see them or to make them out, yet somehow she immediately makes the call, that's not your grandparents.
Yeah, I mean, the only way is like, no, your grandfather is morbidly obese. Or your grandfather isn't black.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be the only way.
There are no defining characteristics about these two that would lead the mother from that distance, from that angle, through a dirty window to believe that they're not the grandparents.
Also from people she hasn't seen in 15 years.
Well, she probably like saw a picture on Facebook or something. Like, but
yeah,
still.
she hasn't seen them for 15 years. Has only seen a picture at most.
Yeah.
Sees them through that distance. It's ridiculous to say that she would make that call. Regardless, let's say that she saw them clearly and knew. What'd she do? She calls the police, which doesn't respond to her. Which brings up the question: why even say that the phones don't work?
Yeah, so to sort of lay that out more clearly, so the mother says that, okay, those aren't my parents. So clearly her kids have been staying with strangers in her parents' house. Definitely reason to call the police. So she calls the police, but they get like I'm sorry, we're busy at this time. Which, like, why does every fucking horror movie like involve the police being apparently overloaded with crime?
The thing is, I will even believe that. The question is, why have the phones don't work and the police is busy?
Yeah,
Just one.
If you're gonna do the thing where it's like, oh, the police are busy, then just have the kids make that call, right? And then say the police are busy. If you're gonna have the mother make the call, then have her talk to the police, but it's gonna take time for them to get there because she's on a fucking cruise, right?
Yeah.
So it's gonna take...
No, she was back by that point.
Okay, whatever. She's in a different state. So she calls 911. She's going to get her own state's police. So it's going to take time for them to figure out where her kids are, get in contact with that station, and coordinate things in order to get police there. That would have been fine. It would have been reasonable. But instead, they double up on the phones don't work, and her mother tried and got a busy signal anyway. There's no reason to do that. Like, it's just compounded stupidness.
Yeah, and at this point, search into your inner survival skills, and you're into this house with people who have been pretending to be your grandparents, but aren't. Have been acting weird, but not threatening or violent in any way towards you.
And have been, by the way, fairly accommodating. Like, they've been letting them use the cameras all the time. They, like, whatever the kids want to do, they're like, yeah, hey, let's do it. So you're in this situation as these kids. You find out that these are not your grandparents. You don't know what happened to your grandparents. You know your mother is scared and she's calling the police, but the police aren't answering.
You know that sooner or later the police is going to show up.
The police are going to show up. You know. So one of two things would go through your, or should go through your head, right? Either wait it out. They've been in no present danger. So wait for the police to get there.
Pretend that they don't know. And
pretend that they don't know and just, you know, maybe don't go to sleep that night.
Yeah.
You know, but wait for the police to get there. You could do that. Or you could say, like, you know, hey, Grandpa, me and my brother want ice cream. Can we go into town? And then they're like, sure, because they kind of just say yes to everything. So they go into town. And then once you're in town, leave.
Yeah, run away. They're old. They're not going to chase you.
Like, go find somebody.
Police station.
Yeah, well, you don't even need that. Just go into the store and be like, listen, we've kind of been kidnapped. We need to use your phone. Like, either one of those things would be acceptable. Neither one of those things is what happens. Instead, like they've been through the rest of the movie, the kids are fucking idiots and do the dumbest thing possible.
They start antagonizing the grandparents. They start acting weird. They start trying to like investigate further into their house. Like,
okay. The grandparents told them not to go into the basement because it has mold. Which, by the way, a reasonable excuse. Yeah. So after they find out that these aren't really their grandparents, the first fucking thing the little shit does, the girl does, is go into the basement. Like, why would you do that? Wait for the cops. Anything. Like, the first thing you do is go the one place you know that your kidnappers don't want you to go.
Welcome to your Darwin Award. I mean,
yeah, really.
There's really no sympathy for that. Like, it is ridiculous that these kids act in such a baffling way so constantly.
And we can also point out, in continuing the complete absence of threat or drama, even, like, they go into the basement and it is so just dull, where they're like just sort of walking around the basement. There's no tension.
Another thing, while she's walking around the basement, you can see the other camera that the other kid has, and you see both those grandparents, so you know there's nobody there with her.
Right, but I'm talking about even when he goes into the basement.
Fine.
That's what I'm talking about. The grandfather follows her into the basement, and he's like chasing her around the basement, like chasing her around the basement.
Like an old, frail old man can.
There's no tension. Like, just push him over and run past. Like, and this is the point when I realized what a serious problem with the movie is the sound design. You look at Blair Witch Project, Paranormal Activity, Grave Encounters, Taking of Deborah Logan, which I'm going to talk about later, you look at any of those movies, and what's really important is the sound design, because in a found footage movie, there's no music, right? So the sound design, even Cloverfield, right? The sound design is highly important to build atmosphere and tension and suspense. And this movie doesn't even make an attempt. It's just like people talking is the sound design in this movie. There's no like creepy noises, there's no like cracking of the house, you know, there's no blowing of wind, you know, there's no like footsteps, nothing. It's just completely empty. So there's nothing to build atmosphere or tension. And so when things that are supposed to be scary are happening, they're not scary. You're just watching it like bored.
Yeah, I mean, she opens the, like, it goes to the point where it's badly edited. Like the scene that is in the trailer where the grandma is scratching at the walls. It stays there for too long for one. And you're just staring at this woman butt naked, just scratching at the wall.
She has underwear on.
Does she?
Yeah.
Regardless, it becomes comical. It is comical. It is funny.
All of the things that the old woman do that are supposed to be scary, like when she's like contorting and like walking under the bed and shit. It's just hilarious. She looks like a cockroach, like crawling under a bed. Like, it's not scary. It's just stupid and comical and completely unthreatening. So, what finally happens is... Oh, no, I want to bring up the scene where the grandfather is smearing shit. Okay, this was the funniest scene to me. So earlier in the movie, the kid, the brother is wondering what the grandfather has in the shed. So he goes in there and finds a bunch of dirty, like, adult diapers, and the grandmother is like, oh, he's incontinent, so he puts them out there, and then because he's embarrassed, and he burns them in the field later. So you're like,
I want to say, like, that scene where you have the grandmother telling the kid why there are diapers, you know, in the shed, is it's not funny. It's genuinely like heartfelt for a scene about incontinence.
Yeah, it's genuinely like you kind of feel bad for him, like, oh, you know.
Yeah.
But okay, so you have that scene. So the shitty diapers have been set up. So by the time shit's going down, the grandparents have dropped all pretense of, you know, even trying to pretend anymore. While the daughter or the sister is locked in a room with the grandmother, the boy is with the grandfather in the kitchen, and for some reason the grandfather wants to film this because he picked up the camera and placed it specifically while the kid is like frozen in the kitchen, and then he takes one of the dirty diapers and just mushes it into the kid's face. Why?
Because it was said once before that he had a thing for germs.
Yeah, okay. The grandfather said that the kid doesn't like germs. I missed that, though. Was that set up?
It was set up once, never really came back.
I completely missed that. But either way, why would you do that? Like, there's nothing that would lead him to do it. He just does it because Shyamalan thinks that's creepy and weird.
By the way, the climax in this movie is not like, oh, the grandparent, the fake grandparents know it's up, know that the kids know. No, what happens is that they stay awake a little too late, and that, like...
Yeah, there's a whole thing, like, go to bed before 9...
before the grandmother starts going... Before 9:30, because it's sundowner. That's all it is. Like, even when the grandfather sees that the girl saw the dead grandparents in the basement...
He doesn't seem to give a shit.
He doesn't really care. Like, he locks her with the grandmother.
The explanation is, like... He thought that his wife deserved, you know, to have grandchildren for a week.
And they didn't like how, those grandparents, like, didn't care about the mother.
Yeah, like, it was an explanation that was just so, like...
Slapped together and passed
off. Like, I could barely follow it, honestly. And
Yeah,
it was just dumb and lame. And yeah, like there wasn't anything that caused them to say like, okay, they know, so let's just go ham. They just kind of do. They just kind of stop pretending at one point.
Yeah, they just start like being kind of mean to them.
Yeah, but mean in like stupid ways, like smearing shit in a kid's face. Or it doesn't make any sense why he would do that.
It's just funny.
He just does it because, again, Shyamalan thought that was weird and creepy when it's not. It's just hilarious. Like, both of us were laughing when that happened because we couldn't believe it. They put that in a movie and expected it to be scary.
Yeah, and to top all of this off, in the middle of this climax, we have them talking about aliens that spit in water.
That wasn't in the middle. That happened earlier.
A little bit. It is after they know that they're not their grandparents. So it is.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
See, I can't even keep track of like what stuff happens.
So right before the climax and during even the climax, they're talking about like aliens that spit in water and make you sleep in a lake. And you makes you think, oh, they're gonna like drown them in the lake. Never happens.
Okay, yeah. So several things could have happened. The grandparents could have thought like these aliens are real, which the grandmother apparently
and the grandfather also does.
Do they? Okay, so they both think like these aliens are real. So it could go where they're going to sacrifice them to the aliens who aren't actually real, or drown them in a lake or something, and that would be the threat. Or it could be where on top of the twist where it's not really the grandparents are aliens. It could be that the aliens are real and the grandparents try to give the kids to the aliens. Or what I said, which would be completely out there but would totally be something Shyamalan would do, I said, what if the kids were the aliens, right? So the grandparents know that these aliens exist, but it turns out that the kids are the aliens and kill them, right?
That would have been funny.
That would have been great. None of this happens. None of it. Nothing even remotely having to do with the aliens happens.
You could cut everything about the aliens from the movie and you wouldn't notice at all.
No. All it was Shyamalan wanted another scene where he makes the grandparents look weird.
Yeah.
That's all it was, and it doesn't work. It's just stupid.
Yeah, and finally, as a final great fuck you to the audience, they kill the grandparents in weird ways that are
so the grandmother like falls on top of the sister, so the sister just stabs the shit out of her with a broken shard of mirror.
Yeah.
In that scene where she's fighting the grandmother, she could have easily just broken a window and climbed out. Why didn't she do that?
You don't even have to get into that. The fact that it was so badly shot that at first when someone was being stabbed,
we didn't even know what was happening.
I thought someone was being killed because I could hear the...
I thought the grandmother was like, drooling into the girl's mouth.
Like, hard to figure it out. Like,
yeah, but the whole thing is like it never even needed to happen because there were so many ways that character, the sister, could have gotten out of that situation and just doesn't, and instead murders the grandmother. And then the son, or the brother, murders the grandfather by smashing his head repeatedly in a refrigerator.
Yeah, it is very overkill. Like, he didn't have to kill that man.
And yes, we understand. It was supposed to be his character arc, because in a,
soccer...
I think it was football. In a football game, he froze on the field. And in the kitchen, he was freezing, but then he overcame it and charged the grandfather
and killed him
and murdered the shit out of him with a refrigerator.
And then there's a sequel where he goes to prison because he did that in the field.
Yeah.
And like they kill the grandparents in completely over dramatic ways that are completely unneeded.
Yeah.
The police shows up with the mother,
even though she was in a completely different state. So it's like the mother wanted to be there, but the police didn't bother sending somebody out first.
Yeah, like, no, the police...
No, like, let's wait for the mother to get here, and then we'll go.
And then we have, like Disney song playing over them, even though it's found footage and there's no songs.
Yeah.
It is such a giant
weird.
fuck you to the audience.
So weird. And here's the thing. If I was the cops, and you bet your ass the cops would have reviewed this footage. If I was the cops, I would tell the kids that they're idiots. Everything that they do through the entire movie or the footage that they shoot makes them look like idiotic assholes. And the cops would have been like, there was no need to kill these people. You are in no danger, and you just murdered them. You're going to prison. Like, there's no way cops would have let them get away with this because they were in no clear danger.
The grandmother, debatably, because she was like in the dark room and scaring the girl. You could say that it was like a reflex and she was just scared. But the grandfather, no.
No, it was a reflex that she stabbed the grandmother multiple fucking times.
Yes.
You could debate the grandmother, but the fact that she was in that situation to begin with was her fault.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about, to finalize this, about there were two ways to make this movie. Given that you can't make these grandparents threatening, you just don't. You don't try. What you make is you make this movie where you make pretty much a drama about this family reuniting, right? And you have most of the movie being about how these kids are connecting with these with these people,
with their grandparents. Yeah,
even though they have problems and them overcoming it.
Yeah, a la Catfish.
Yes.
Which, if you've seen Catfish, that's pretty much, as far as I know, the only real found footage movie out there, and it's essentially a documentary about two guys who find out that they're being catfished, if you know what that means. So they go find the woman who is pretending to be this other person, and they talk to her and they interview her. It's actually a really interesting movie, and I recommend you go see it. You could do this movie in a similar kind of fashion up to a point.
Yeah.
Where it's like the kids are connecting with their long-lost grandparents. They're having fun. Everybody's enjoying themselves.
If you could even have some of the scenes where like the grandparents go a little bit crazy and like,
but for the kids to be understanding.
Yes,
yes. The kids would be understanding about like maybe the weird things that the grandparents do, and you wouldn't even try to play it up as a horror. You would play it up as a drama until the reveal.
Until the reveal.
Right? So it's basically been a drama about like these kids who are getting to know their long lost grandparents, and then the reveal half an hour until the end of the movie that those aren't their grandparents, then it turns into a horror. That could be really effective because it's a bait and switch. It sets you up for something completely different and then throws you off guard with, holy shit, these kids are actually in danger by these people that we liked. Mm-hmm. The other way that you make this movie is properly, like a proper horror found footage movie where the tension is constantly ratcheted up, and they're sort of butting heads with the grandparents and trying to figure out what all this crazy stuff is going on, but then you see the grandparents kind of trying to control the situation and keep them from notice or from finding out what's really happening, and you have that sort of back and forth leapfrogging of power where the kids are trying to get ahead, but then the grandparents are trying to get ahead, and then it comes to blows at the end. And you find out that what's really going on is they're not even their grandparents. So now the old couple are off the hook and can't let anybody find out what's happened here and are after the kids. That would be the other way to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what I had expected from the movie.
That's what I think everyone expected.
But instead, it's just this boring mess of nothing happening, and then when stuff starts happening, it's just completely silly.
The only thing I can say about this movie is it made me really want a drama about kids knowing their grandparents and dealing with dementia, dealing with getting old, dealing with, family estrangement. Like, these are all subjects that you can do so much with them, and they're so unexplored, weirdly.
Yeah.
There's so much unbroken ground you can do there as a drama. And, instead we got a really bad horror movie.
Horror. Of all the horror movies I've ever seen, as bad as some of the horror movies we've seen are, I've never seen one that has literally no tension. None.
Dead Silence is scarier than this.
Yes, and Dead Silence is fucking terrible.
Go watch Dead Silence.
But this has no tension, no scares. It has one shitty jump scare.
Which only happens for the movie to have
a jump scare when it really shouldn't have happened at all. The movie is just completely dull and boring, and I can't even say it's broken. It's because there's nothing in it.
I don't understand how the general audience really liked it so much, because it really appeals to no one.
No, I don't even think audiences liked it. I think they were no, it's okay. It's an okay movie. Yeah, but even then, it's not. And to be clear again, it doesn't fit in with The Happening or anything. It's not that bad. There's just nothing to it. It's so completely hollow. There's nothing in it.
Yeah.
I want to wrap this up by talking about just a little bit about The Taking of Deborah Logan. If you want to see how a movie like this could be done properly, go watch The Taking of Deborah Logan. It deals with a woman who has dementia, so the film crew is making a documentary about her, but then they slowly come to realize that there's more going on. But it treats the illness with respect, though. Mm-hmm. That movie actually does respect its subject matter and treats people with dementia with respect. This movie, the Visit, doesn't. It's just, isn't it weird and creepy how they behave? Woo! So go watch The Taking of Deborah Logan. It's not the best movie ever made, but it is a good found footage movie, and it is a good example of how this subject matter should be handled.
I guess that's it for tonight.
That's all I have to say.
Night, folks.
Let's make it a perfect night.
What is that? Mom, you need to come right now.
Would you mind getting inside the oven to clean it?
Stop! Nana, stop!